Your plant is already telling you what's wrong. You're just reading it wrong. You see yellow leaves, brown tips, random spots, and you try to fix it. More water, less water, maybe fertilizer. But somehow it only gets worse. Because most people aren't actually diagnosing the problem, they're guessing. And with plants, guessing is expensive. Fixing the wrong problem can actually make it worse. That brown tip you cut, it comes back. That yellow leaf you tried to save, it spreads. Not because plants are unpredictable, but because every leaf is a signal, and most people don't know how to read it. This isn't random damage, it's communication. In this video, you're going to learn how to decode every major leaf symptom your plant shows you, clearly and correctly. No more guessing. No more trying random fixes and hoping something works. You'll start seeing plants the way they actually function, like systems that give specific signals for specific problems. You'll understand why brown tips never recover no matter what you do, why yellow leaves aren't always a bad sign, and how to instantly tell the difference between a watering issue and a pest problem. Because once you understand what each symptom really means, everything changes. You stop reacting and start diagnosing. Brown tips and dry edges. Brown tips are one of the most common plant problems, and one of the most misunderstood. Most people assume it's disease. It's not. In almost every case, brown tips are caused by water imbalance. Your plant is losing moisture faster than it can replace it. And because the tips are the furthest point from the water supply inside the leaf, they're the first to dry out and die. Low humidity is a major trigger, especially indoors. So is inconsistent watering, letting the soil dry out too much, then overcorrecting. Even dry air from fans or heaters can cause it. And here's the part most people miss. Once a tip turns brown, it doesn't recover. You can cut it off, but that doesn't fix the cause. If the underlying issue stays the same, new growth will develop the same problem. Brown tips aren't damage. They're dehydration. Yellow leaves explained. Yellow leaves confuse people more than anything else, because sometimes they mean nothing, and other times they mean everything. If only the lower leaves are turning yellow, slowly, one at a time, your plant is doing something normal. It's reallocating nutrients from older leaves to support new growth. This is part of its natural cycle. But when yellowing spreads across the entire plant, or starts moving upward quickly, that's a different signal. That usually points to a root issue, most often overwatering. And here's the mistake most people make. They think more water helps. In reality, too much water removes oxygen from the soil. The roots can't breathe, they begin to fail, and the plant can't transport nutrients properly. The leaves turn yellow because the system is breaking down from below. So the color itself isn't the problem. Yellow isn't a problem, it's a signal. The pattern tells you everything. Leaf curling. Leaf curling looks dramatic, but it's actually very precise. If the leaves curl inward, with the edges rolling toward the center, your plant is trying to conserve water. It's reducing surface area to slow down moisture loss. This usually happens with underwatering, high heat, or very low humidity. But if the leaves curl downward, with edges folding under, the cause is different. That's often a sign of overfeeding, especially too much nitrogen, or general stress from excess nutrients. The plant is growing faster than it can structurally support, and the leaves start to deform. Same symptom, opposite causes. The direction of the curl tells you the cause. If you've ever tried to fix a plant and made it worse, subscribe, because most plant problems are misdiagnosed. Spots and diseases. Spots look random, but they're not. They follow very specific patterns. If you see dark brown or black spots surrounded by a yellow halo, that's almost always fungal. The yellow ring is the boundary between infected tissue and healthy cells trying to defend themselves. This usually comes from moisture sitting on leaves, overhead watering, poor airflow, or crowded plants. Now compare that to soft, translucent, almost water-soaked patches. That's not fungus, it's physical damage, usually from cold. When plant cells are exposed to low temperatures, they rupture. The tissue collapses, turns mushy, and eventually darkens. This can happen from cold drafts, cold water, or even a leaf touching a cold window. Two completely different causes. Two very different solutions. Spots aren't random, they follow patterns. And once you recognize those patterns, you stop treating symptoms and start fixing the actual problem. Pest damage. Some leaf damage isn't caused by water, light, or nutrients. It's caused by something feeding on your plant. Tiny pale dots scattered across the leaf surface are usually spider mites. Each dot is a cell that's been punctured and drained. Check the underside of the leaf. This is where they live. If the leaves start to look silvery or slightly metallic, that's a sign of thrips. They scrape the surface and leave behind empty cells, which reflect light differently. And if your leaves feel sticky, that's not from the plant. It's honeydew, waste from sap-sucking insects like aphids or mealybugs. That often leads to a secondary problem: black mold growing on the residue. Different pests, different patterns. If it looks like damage without a pattern, it's probably alive. Light problems. Light changes how your plant looks more than almost anything else, and most people misread it. If leaves start looking pale, washed out, or slightly bleached with no clear pattern, that's usually too much light. The plant is getting more intensity than it can handle, and chlorophyll starts breaking down faster than it can be replaced. This is called photobleaching, and once it happens, those leaves don't fully recover. Now the opposite. If your plant turns very dark green, almost unnaturally deep in color, it's not a sign of great health. It's a sign of low light. The plant is producing extra chlorophyll to capture whatever light is available. It's compensating, and while it survives like this, growth slows down. Leaves may become smaller, weaker, and more vulnerable over time. So both extremes are signals. Leaves change color based on light, not just health. And once you understand that, you stop guessing and start placing your plant where it actually needs to be. Root and water issues. This is where most plants actually fail, not at the leaves, but below the surface. If your plant is wilting but the soil is still wet, the problem isn't lack of water, it's root failure. The roots have been sitting in saturated soil for too long, oxygen is gone, and they start to rot. Once that happens, the plant can't move water upward, even if there's plenty of it. And the instinct most people have makes it worse. They add more water. More water doesn't fix a dying root system. It accelerates the damage. Now, look at sudden leaf drop, when leaves fall off while still green and healthy. That's not disease. It's a stress response. Moving the plant, repotting, temperature shifts. Any sudden change can trigger it. The plant reduces its leaf count to lower demand while it adjusts. Both symptoms look serious, but they're not random. They're survival signals, and they always point back to what's happening underground. Read your plant like a system. At this point, everything changes in how you see your plant. It's no longer about random problems or trial and error fixes. Every symptom you see, color change, curl, spots, drop, it's not chaos. It's communication. Your plant is constantly telling you what's happening inside it. The mistake most people make is treating the symptom instead of understanding the signal. They cut the leaf, add more water, move the plant, or add fertilizer, without knowing why. And that's why problems repeat, because nothing was actually diagnosed. Once you shift your mindset, you stop reacting and start reading. You look at patterns, not just damage. You ask what the plant is trying to compensate for, not just what looks wrong. That's the difference between struggling with plants and understanding them. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need luck. You need clarity. Because plants are systems, and every system follows rules. When something changes, there's always a reason behind it. And once you understand those reasons, problems stop feeling confusing. They start feeling predictable. Healthy plants aren't lucky. They're understood. So the next time you look at your plant, don't ask, "What's wrong?" Ask, "What is it telling me?" What's your plant doing right now? Describe it. You might already know the answer,